Hey guys, this is going to be a PSA on the scale train rail cars, engines, or whatever it involves scale trains. The other day I saw Vinny uh, adjust the weight on his rail cars. Now I'm not trying to be controversial, be a pain or anything, but when you're involved, when you using a scale train rail car on your layout, and I mean any car that's not a kit. Now a kit, I can kind of understand you adding weight, but if it's already assembled and it's a scale trains rail car, don't touch the weight. And I don't think he saw my comment about that in this video, but uh, if anything is wrong with it, more likely it's not the car, it's the track work. Because I just noticed that lately with these Rivet Counter scale trains cars, these cars are already pretty damn weighed real good, and these are HO, and the N scales are pretty much the same way. There are three things that you have to do to your car to make sure it stays on track, and that's N scale or HO. The first thing you have to do is the coupler. Now, what I did is I changed out the couplers and put my KD couplers on there. But before I put the coupler on there, I bent the coupler holes up so that it don't slide on the curves, because these KD couplers has the tendency to slide and hit the joints, the rail joints on the curves because of the radius of the length of the car. So every time it was hitting the curve, it was hitting this. And then I had to go back and make sure that these rail joints were nice and smooth and didn't have no issues, so that it would roll, and it'll roll real good. And I'm going to give y'all a prime example of what I'm talking about when you have an issue. See how that rolls across nice and smooth? So that's one thing about the couplers. Or if you want to, most of those guys on N scale cut the holes off, and those N scale scale trains don't have them. So that's not the issue there. The next issue it could be is your track work. Now I had to adjust all my track work for these cars, and I mean when I say I had to adjust it, I had to adjust it just for the simple fact, when it's coming out of a gyro switch or going into a gyro switch, sometimes it has the tendency, you hear that popping noise? This track is not all the way down, so I have to go back and adjust the track, especially up here on the engines. You'll hear a clicking noise up here. I'm trying to eliminate the noise, but right here, it's pretty bad. And I can hear my engines pop on that. And it kept falling off track, especially my rivet counters. My rivet counters are like my sensors for anything on this layout. They will tell me if a car is good or bad, if the track is good or bad, in other words. And lately, I've been finding a lot of bad spots with those rivet counters. So I've been using those as my rail sensors to check my track. And the final thing is the weight. Don't touch the weight. Whatever you do, do not add weight to a scale train's car. Because if you start adding weight to the scale train car, more likely all you're going to get is a big boom. And I'm not talking about it's my railroad. But what I'm trying to say is the more weight you add on, the more weight you're going to make that train buckle when you hit the bad spot of the track. This whole section I just replaced just for the simple fact my Rivet Counter tank car saw there was issues all in here. And so I took it up, used some old flex track and replaced that. It's not nickel brass, but it'll do until I can start back buying up a bunch of track. Do not touch the weight on your N-scale, HO, or whatever rail car when it involves scale trains. All you have to do is check the track. If you do that, then you'll have a smooth operations on your layout. These dang couplers from scale trains, these plastic couplers, is a menace to my operations. And trust me, they are a pain in the ass. The Rivet Counter and the operator has two different type of couplers. And I'm gonna show y'all right now. All right, come on, couple, man. See the Rivet Counter couplers that they have. These Rivet Counter couplers and this coupler, you see the difference in the Rivet and the operator? This is a good coupler. This is a shitty coupler. Excuse my language, but it's a crappy coupler. So I have to change all those out. But the Rivet Counter coupler over a period of time will wear out extremely fast. So I have to change all of them out to KD couplers sooner or later. But like I said, I'm not trying to be controversial or make an issue. But when you start messing with the weight with a scale train's rail car, you're going to start making more issues in the long run. Check your track work. And I think Container Man 68 was one of my big aggravates of telling me, check your track work, man. Your track work. It ain't your car, it's your track work. And that's what I did lately. I always go through and check my track work. And then I take the most sensitive car, which is these Rivet Counters scale train tank cars. And I put them on here. And I make sure to use it to check every little section. And I don't roll it with my hand. I use an engine to check it. Majority of the time I use an engine to do that. And the reason why is that engine in that car, it's better to use an engine than a car so that it'll tell you exactly what's going on. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna take this. I'm take my Rivet Counter. Make sure it's coupled. A couple up there. There we go. And most of the time I'll take two cars instead of one, but we're gonna just use this one. And now y'all gonna see what I'm talking about in a second. Like I said, these cars are very sensitive. They got some very sensitive wheels and they will check your track work. See how that car jumped a little bit? So I gotta check that, fix that section. See, it didn't jump on the engine, but it jumped on the rail car. See, I had a bad section there last night when I went off air because I saw it. And so I took my Rivet Counter in the engine and put it on there to check it, to make sure it'll run. People, do not adjust the weight. Just check your track work. 60% of the time, well, I'll say 80% of the time is your track. The other 20%, it could be the wheels. Check your wheels. Make sure you got a good quality wheel on there. These scale train deals with Intermountain wheels. I can tell the difference. These are Intermountains. There's a bad spot there. So that's another spot I gotta adjust. There's not that many bad spots on the switch. And this is actually the main all the way around. It goes behind the yard, which I call the backside main. This is pretty much the backside main. I had a bad spot there that I had to fix the other day. Just take your cars. Take your cars and just run them around. Especially a Rivet Counter. It's going to tell you everything. See that clicking noise? That was a bad spot, but I fixed that. It still does the clicking noise, but as long as it stays on track, that's all that matters. And we're back at the beginning. Now we're going to take it to the outside main. We're going to line this switch. Line this switch. And that's all you have to do. Take the time to just check your track work. Take the most sensitive car, which is a scale train's car, hoppers, anything that's Rivet Counter, put it on the layout and let it go through. Because the wheels on those cars will actually tell you what's going on. And I think this is a high quality Intermountain wheel because they're very, very smooth. They will detect anything with your track work. And I'm only going 20. Switchless. Put it down there. And then I gotta clean up again. I got junk everywhere, man. It's number one thing about your layout. It can get dirty real quick. And I just cleaned this room about a month ago. And look what happened. Make sure your switches are completely lined, especially the Giro switches. They have the tension because they got that sling move in them. So you got to make sure they're all the way across over. Even the slightest bit on a Giro switch can knock a car off. And that's something I had to make sure. I had to put, what I got under here is some hard grind sandpaper right over the points under the PC tie to make sure that they stay lined, because if not, that's another problem with the switch. If it runs over a switch, then that switch is not completely lined. So make sure that the switch is lined all the way, because it will have an issue. So I had to readjust my switches, and I took the soldering iron and I put the fly throws on there and did it that way. And they're completely lined. Just take your time and check your track work. Now this area right here, this is a very iffy situation here. So we're gonna see how it turns, and if not, then I'll have to do some more work over here again. See, this scale train is gonna tell me what's wrong. We cleared the switch. The engine cleared. I was over here 2 weeks ago when I put this in. It took me about an hour, probably 2 hours, just for that section right there. Getting this curve switch in. The section is good there. And we're about to be right at back at the beginning. You know, line the switch. And that's it. Like I said, put a Rivet Counter car on there. Take an engine, put it with the engine. See that clicking noise? And the reason why it's doing that is here. The switch is not completely locked in. I gotta adjust the switch again. Well, actually not the switch, but the fly throw, because it makes a clicking noise when you hit it. So, like I said, we're gonna take it the other way. Just take the time to check your track work. Put a whole, if you have to, put 3 or 4 rivet counters on there. Because these cars are very sensitive. Very sensitive. Now when I say they're sensitive, you probably can look at it. If you're ugly, I ain't gonna say that, I'm sorry. Never mind. But just take the time to put a very sensitive car on there with very sensitive wheels. Atlas Engines has some very sensitive rail wheels on there, and they will tell you everything that's wrong with your track. Bachmann has some engines. My Bachmanns that I used to have were the same way, and they was very sensitive to every little thing. Every little thing. So take the time, look at your track work, and make sure that it's running proper. Otherwise, you'll be adding weight to a car that you don't need to add weight to, because you think it's the weight of the car. It's not the weight of the car, it's your track work. Check your switches. Check your switches. Make sure you check your switches. Make sure the points and everything is lined properly. So this is just one of my PSAs on the scale train cars. Don't touch the weight. Never touch the weight of a scale train's car because it's already set, and you don't need to. Check your track work. Make sure everything on your track is properly done. And you will never have issues with your scale trains. All right. Oh shoot. Forgot to line that switch. Now, if this was a fly-through switch, it would have just ran through without a problem. I wish. I'm not gonna wish that, because then if you do that, then that's like playing with fire. Put an automatic fly-through switch. Make an automatic fly-through. A fly-through switch, where when you go through the switch, it will spring into and lock. And that's all you do, guys. Take the time, check your track work, and I guarantee you, those Rivet Counters will tell you everything that's wrong with your track work. All you got to do is just don't be lazy. Get in there and just put an engine on there and get a Rivet Counter and let it run. Because those Rivet Counters will tell you if anything is wrong with your track work. And after this past week and a half of putting them on here, they found almost on this one main alone, the backside main, they found about 15 to 20 spots on my layout that was bad. So that's a lot of spots to deal with, and I have no issues whatsoever. I just fixed all that this past weekend, where they just ran through. I had to adjust everything up there, and now it's running, baby. So this is my little, I wouldn't call it a rant, this is just my PSA to tell y'all, if you have any Rivet Counter cars, operator cars, anything that involves scale trains cars, don't touch the weight. The weight is fine. It's not the weight of the car that's the issue. It's your track work that is an issue. And if you have a Rivet Counter, use that Rivet Counter with an engine and let it run through until you fix the problem wherever you having it. Because trust me, adjusting the weight is like playing with fire, because if you put too much weight, and adjusting even a little bit of weight could have it more of an issue. So check your track work, check your switches, check everything. All right? Let me get to work. Thank y'all for watching. Bye.